Welcome to Radiant Guidance. My name is Molly. I'm a consulting astrologer, and on my website, you can find links to one-to-one sessions where we can explore your natal birth chart in its holistic entirety, connect you to your unique gifts and your dharma, as well as understand any personal planetary cycles that you're traversing. I also offer partnership sessions and I teach classes. I have a class on my website for astrology for thriving relationships, and this particular aspect, Venus opposite Uranus, is one that plays a lot into relationships because Venus is the planet of relationships. It's the planet of beauty and aesthetics, and Uranus is that which challenges the norm, spontaneity, change, innovation. So I call this aspect the creative iconoclast aspect. And I'll go over how this manifests on a more relationship level, as well as other ways that this aspect expresses by giving some examples of well-known figures with this aspect throughout history. So on a relationship level, you are ultimately balancing the need for sovereignty and freedom with connectivity. And any opposition in astrology, that's when we have planets 180 degrees apart, are also complements, right? But when they're integrated, we can balance those two things. Unintegrated, however, we might experience projection. There's the famous quote that that which we don't integrate on an internal level will manifest and present itself as fate externally. So with this particular aspect, it's not uncommon to feel like you might be attracting avoidant type partners or unavailable people. And a lot of this is underlying with your own coming to terms of these two themes within yourself. Now, it's not uncommon for those with this aspect to have been faced with themes of estrangement from relationships in their formative years. And so there can be a little bit of fear of abandonment or avoidance, avoidant attachment style with this particular natal aspect. However, when integrated, you ultimately can find yourself in maybe unique relational dynamics that suit your need for being outside of the box, outside of the norm, needing a lot of spaciousness and freedom, and your style of connectivity. So on a creative level, this aspect is quite ahead of its time. If we think of Venus also relating to economies and commerce, these people have a grasp of trends before they happen. So they're pioneering in a very creative sense. Hence the creative iconoclast title that I gave these natives with this aspect. So who are some well-known figures with Venus opposite Uranus? One of the first ones I'll talk about is Ursula Lewin. She was a science fiction writer of dystopian ideas, of, like many scientific writers, ideas that we are now finding ourselves living within and having to negotiate. Now, she was not just a scientific fiction writer, she also was espousing ideas that had to do with new economic systems and challenging the current governments of her time. So she gets kind of classified under being a little anarchistic in her views as well as feminist in some of her views. And so at the time, these were very out there ideas, but today we might, as we enter the age of Aquarius, be more okay with some of these things or familiar with some of these ideas and accept them as good ideas. So that's another kind of hallmark of this aspect. It's standing outside the norm in your value system, but I encourage people with this aspect to let their freak flag fly because, you know, when you're paving a new road to your dreams, to your vision, most people aren't going to get it. They literally won't see it because you're in the process of building it. So only you know where it leads. And a lot of the time it's those thinkers and those artists and creators who, looking back, people think, wow, that was a great idea. But in their time, people say, are they crazy? Are they nuts? Another well-known artist with this aspect was Frank Zappa. And one of his famous quotes was, without deviation from the norm, progress is not possible. Now, Frank Zappa was a musician who blended together very divergent styles. He was very progressive with jazz, classical, and other styles of music, and melding them to create something brand new, and was very applauded for this uniqueness. We also have a lot of writers with this aspect, like Thoreau, who was part of the Transcendentalist movement. Now, Transcendentalism is all about returning to simplicity, right? Forgoing maybe unnecessary luxuries or necessities to get back to a more minimalistic life. He was well known for Walden going to this retreat, this private cabin in remote Massachusetts, and living with nature, and really espoused in his writings the benefit of simplifying, simplicity. And even today, we're experiencing kind of a revival of these ideas, this idea of minimalism. Now, Thoreau was also known not just for these unique ideas of his time, but for being an abolitionist in a lot of ways, and really resisting slavery and working to help free slaves. And so, again, today we would, most society considers slavery to be wrong or something to do away with. But at his time, this was very counter to the norm and very out there. So he was outspoken in his views and melded his art with some sort of social reform. Another person with this particular aspect is Gertrude Stein, who was a avant-garde art collector, and she was a pioneer in making Cubism more well respected and sought out. And she collected many Cubist works, which was a very modern style of painting that was very cutting edge at its time. She was also a lesbian and wrote a lot about feminist theory, and was later a role model for a lot of cutting edge feminist ideas. Of course, her homosexual status was very unique for her time as well. As we can see, a unique, unconventional relating style. We also have, who else is on my list? Shakespeare. Shakespeare was another kind of blender of divergent thoughts. So he created many comedies where there were elements of tragedy within them. He created tragedies that had lightheartedness and humor. So again, we're seeing this blending of divergent, contrasting ideas. He also would have males playing female parts and vice versa. So this fluidity within gender roles is something that's quite interesting and keeps kind of coming up with this aspect. And today, again, it's something that we now are more accepting of on a collective level, but at the time was quite out there and very head-turning, so to speak. He also invented many words that are common in our modern vocabulary. So some of the words that Shakespeare invented, I will list off right now, and you tell me if they sound out there. So alligator was first quoted in Romeo and Juliet, bedroom in A Midsummer's Night Dream, critic in Love's Labour's Lost, downstairs, eyeball, fashionable, gossip in The Comedy of Errors, hurry, inaudible. These are words that are very common vocab words in the English language today, but at his time had not prior existed. So again, someone who was very pioneering in his creativity and vision, and really created things that later became a trend. I'm trying to think if I missed anyone in this aspect so far. Shakespeare, Thoreau, Gertrude Stein, Frank Zappa, Ursula Lewin. These are just some people with the Venus opposite Uranus aspect. So if you have this aspect, I encourage you to utilize your creative genius. Perhaps you have new economic ideas, or you invest in new types of, of currency. This can be a way to apply this aspect in your life to get some sort of edge. Perhaps you are working on something that is never been done before and is completely unique in your particular creative field. Not everyone with this aspect is necessarily an artist, but it's quite usual to find people who have some sort of creative vision that has to blend with a humanitarian cause. So I encourage you to tap into that iconoclastic part of yourself. If you want to deepen your understanding of this aspect in your chart as it relates to the whole map of your natal chart, feel free to reach out to me and book a consultation. I have the link below. If you found anything useful in this video, please comment below, share, or subscribe. I really appreciate your support of this channel. Have a beautiful day.